Hi, my name is Tim Abear, and this is Progressive Prototype Performances Prevent Pernicious Problems. My concept of progressive prototype performances is sort of my answer to a lot of problems that arise in project-based learning. They need to be progressive in that they're more and more like the desired end product. They need to be prototypes in that they're not perfect, they're meant to reveal what needs to be improved. And they need to be performances in that you have to have a live demonstration. A demonstration of content skill has to be part of this demonstration. There has to be a need to publicly show the work to an audience, and there has to be improvement over the previous effort. All of these things are key to the definition of progressive prototype performances for me. What pernicious problems do they prevent? Well, I have a few. One is invisible incompetence, when a teammate hides lack of skill until it's time for the presentation and then just relies on the teammates to deliver the message. When that happens, all a facilitator can say is, so-and-so should have talked more. But if you could head this off at the pass by identifying it early in the project, then you would. And with progressive prototype performances, perhaps you can. There's also the problem of missing motivation, when a learner says, I don't know what to do, or even, how does this relate to the project? So if you have built into the cycle that the new skill the learner just learned is to be integrated into the next prototype performance, it's clear how it relates to the project, and the learner also knows what to do. Perfunctory production, yes. Why should I work hard? Well, presenting in front of peers and having to improve on your previous effort gives sort of an answer that is socially oriented to why should I work hard. And it also gives a short time scale for when you need to make improvements by, which to me addresses the perfunctory production problem. There's also pervasive procrastination. Gee, this isn't even due for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, but I've been working so hard. Oh, but only for the last 2 days, right? With progressive prototype performances, the learners have a presentation basically every 2 days. So they always have to be working hard, and they know when their deadline is, and it's not 2 weeks away. There are maddening misconceptions. Have you ever had a teammate state something in a presentation that is flatly wrong, usually with the subject matter they're presenting about? Well, this is the first time you've heard it, right? This has happened to me when my principal was watching my presentations. It has happened to me when bigwigs from the New Tech Network were watching my presentations, and it even happened to me when the superintendent of my school district dropped by to watch my presentations. So you can see I'm powerfully motivated to avoid this, and I think progressive prototype performances are part of the key. And last, there's the standard freshman stage fright. After doing a pretty good job on the product, the learner freezes up and gets that deer in the headlights look during the performance. Well, if you've already done 4 practice performances before this, perhaps you'll be less inclined to freeze up. So, in a sort of more traditional setting, what happens is you learn skills, and then more skills. Perhaps your skills even build on each other, as this graphic suggests, and then at the end there's a test or a performance. That's not quite the way it works in project-based learning. The way that I used to teach project-based learning looked more like this. You would have skills taught more rapidly and building on one another, and then you would have some time to prepare for the performance, and then finally you would have the performance. I feel like this separation of learning skills and putting together the product or performance wasn't healthy for learning. So I feel like the progressive prototype performance idea gives you something that looks more like this last piece. First a skill, then a related performance. Another skill, a performance. Another skill, a performance. And you can get rid of the purple section where the learners prepare for performance because they're preparing for performance every time they do a prototype performance. In this way, I feel like progressive prototype performances actually don't take as much extra time as you might think they would. So I ran a few projects this way, and I want to report on what I learned. In spring 2013, I ran the Radioactive Comics and Games project. In this, learners were asked to incorporate new learning into the next prototype presentation, and then they got feedback from facilitators and fellow learners after each presentation. The results of this were better presentations than I really expected, and more satisfying collaboration than usual for the learners. So I got excited about the concept of progressive prototype performances. I tried to apply it next to an Algebra 1 class where they did the stained graph window project. In this, the learners began their live prototype presentations a little late in the cycle, after a lot of the learning had already taken place. And some of my freshmen really responded to feedback during their performances by making improvements, but others didn't. They had already sort of been stuck in a rut from having learned their content first and then been asked to start performances. So the lesson I learned was to have the prototype presentations go throughout the content cycle. In this next project, I had my learners responsible for producing prototype products, but they did not have to present these products publicly. So any failure on their part, or any inaction on their part, was private. They didn't have to reveal it to their peers. They were responsible for creating products in prototype pieces, but not for demonstrating them. And during the final presentation, they were really clearly uncomfortable with showing their content knowledge. So what I learned was that the prototype deadlines have to be presentations, not just pieces of the product. And they have to make these presentations include math content. Then you can sort of get your money's worth on the prototype process. And I did this project, the Green versus Green project. Here, the learners were responsible for producing prototypes of their writing, but they didn't have to present it publicly. And a problem with this was that we really didn't have enough time to evaluate the writing to give sufficient feedback to the learners. So what I learned was that prototype deadlines need to be public. There we leverage the class's expertise in providing respectful, specific, and useful critique. And those three words that are underlined come from Ron Berger's critique process, to which I owe much and which I've tried to integrate into this progressive prototype performance process. So, progressive prototype performances. They give you an immediate, real application of incremental learning. They build in experiences that help keep both the facilitators and the learners on track. And they tend to result in improved presentations and products compared to my previous way of building presentations and products. And, at last, they prevent pernicious problems.